I've seen a lot of people grab the cheapest 15-inch laptop they can find, only to end up wrestling with lag when they finally need to open a 3D model or render a video. The regret hits hard because the savings turn into wasted time and a second purchase. That's why I wanted to see if the Lenovo ThinkPad P17 actually feels like a smarter buy instead of just another pricey disappointment. Link is in the description if you want to check the product details on Amazon. When you're standing in front of a client and need to pull up a full-size CAD drawing, the hesitation is real. Do I bring my desktop rig, a thin Ultrabook, or try to squeeze everything onto a cheap tablet? The ThinkPad P17 positions itself as a mobile workstation, promising desktop-class power in a bag-friendly case. The promise is tempting, but the risk is that you might pay for a badge and still end up with a machine that can't keep up with the software you rely on. First off, the CPU. The 10th-gen Intel Core i7-10750H is a 6-core part that can boost up to 5 GHz. In everyday terms, that means opening a large Revit file or compiling a Visual Studio project feels snappy, not like watching paint dry. I tested it on a typical day of switching between a 20-page spreadsheet, a 2 GB Photoshop file, and a lightweight Blender scene. The laptop handled the transitions without the "hold on I'm still loading" moment that cheaper Intel i5 or AMD Ryzen 5 models often show. Memory is another hidden cost in workstations, and 32 GB of DDR4 at 2933 MHz gives you the breathing room to keep a handful of VMs, large datasets, or multiple design apps open simultaneously. In my own workflow, I was able to run a virtual machine for Linux testing while keeping AutoCAD and Premiere Pro open, and the system never resorted to swapping to the SSD in a way that slowed me down. That kind of headroom is something you'll notice only after you've tried to push a less equipped laptop beyond its limits. The storage story is straightforward but important. A 1 TB PCIe SSD reads and writes at speeds that make loading a 500-page engineering report feel instantaneous. It also means you can keep a full library of project files locally without relying on an external drive. I tried copying a 12 GB video archive to the drive while rendering a 1080p clip, and the transfer finished in the background without any noticeable dip in render performance. Now let's talk about the screen. A 17.3-inch IPS panel with 1920x1080 resolution sounds modest compared to 4K options, but the anti-glare coating and 300 nit brightness hold up well in most office lighting and even in a sunny conference room. The larger surface area reduces the need to zoom in and scroll, which is a real time saver when you're reading detailed schematics. If you're used to fighting glare on a glossy surface, the matte finish is a welcome change, though the trade-off is that you won't get the punchy colors you'd see on a higher-end display. Graphics are where the mobile workstation label gets scrutinized. The NVIDIA Quadro T2000 is a 4 GB card built for professional workloads, not gaming. For most engineering and architectural software, it delivers reliable driver support and certified stability. I ran a small-scale 3D render of a kitchen layout, and the GPU finished the job in about half the time a comparable integrated graphics solution would have taken. However, if your daily grind includes heavy GPU-accelerated simulations or high-resolution video effects, you'll feel the limits of the T2000 compared to a more powerful RTX workstation GPU. Battery life is where the P17 reminds you it's still a laptop, not a desktop. With a 94Wh battery, I got roughly 5 hours of mixed usage coding, email, and occasional video playback before needing to plug in. That's fine for a day at the office, but if you plan to be on a construction site all day without power, you'll need a spare battery or a power bank. The weight, too, is noticeable. At over 6 pounds, the machine feels solid, but it's not something you'll happily toss into a backpack for a coffee shop sprint. Connectivity is where the P17 leans into its professional niche. Wi-Fi 6, AX201, gives you a more stable connection in crowded office environments, and Bluetooth 5.